Swinson.
Thank you very much, Mr Benton. And I would like to start by congratulating the Honourable Member for Thurrock for securing this debate. And as ever, he put his case forcefully and with a great deal of passion, and gave us an excellent introduction to the debate that we've had this morning. Various speakers, Mr Benton, have outlined the problems that are currently being faced by the residents in Camp Ashraf, who numbered nearly 4,000 back in 2003, and after several hundred voluntary repatriations, or perhaps in the region of 3,500 individuals there now. We saw last year in May and July the danger of actually living in Camp Ashraf with missile attacks thought to be from the Iranian side, the disruptions to water supply again, which have made living conditions difficult within the camp. And indeed, we've also heard from members today about the relatives living in Iran trying to visit Ashraf to see their relatives, something which in this country we would take for granted, actually being arrested and held, and goodness knows suffering what treatment in Tehran at the moment. The Honourable Member for Thurrock gave us a long list of the threats, of the dangers of persecution that these individuals will face if they were sent back to Iran. And of course, in terms of the timing of this debate, it is almost exactly 2 months ago, it was on the 23rd of January, that the Iraqi government said that Camp Ashraf should be closed within 2 months. And so this is clearly an urgent, pressing and concerning issue, and that's why today's debate is particularly timely. Now, of course, there's been some debate in this House, and I read with interest the Hansard of a debate in Iran a few weeks ago in this place about the deprescription of the PMOI, and it seemed that there was heated views on various sides about this issue. What I would turn to was that the UK Court of Appeal has actually ruled that there's neither classified nor unclassified evidence that show the PMOI to have had any terrorist activity or intent, at least since 2001, and this has been discussed in the High Court. So whatever some individual members may think about the rights or wrongs of this issue, I think we must accept the court ruling, and that this is not a terrorist organisation. I think the view would be shared across the whole House that we want to see a pluralist Iran with no persecution of opposition and with a thriving democracy. Now, we are perhaps some way away from that. But what I would caution against is any automatic assumption that because the PMOI are not a terrorist organisation, that they are therefore the only or the ideal champions of democracy. And it is possible to believe the PMOI are not terrorists, but at the same time to retain some concerns about the organisation. People who have left Camp Ashraf voluntarily have reported brainwashing, forced indoctrination and rough treatment by the PMOI of those who wanted to leave the camp. Now, this was challenged to some extent by some speakers as the claims of brainwashing being spin from the Iranian authorities, but the quote I've just read out there is actually from the House of Commons Library briefing note, and I'm sure, like other members, I have huge respect for the integrity of the House of Commons Library and would not expect them to succumb to the Iranian spin. So I think that does identify that there are some genuine concerns about some of the procedures which are happening in Ashraf, and all I would say is that we should therefore not necessarily view this group with rose-tinted spectacles. That said, the point of the debate that we're having today is about human rights, and regardless of political views or beliefs, all human beings deserve basic human rights, and the group of individuals in Camp Ashraf are protected under the Geneva Convention. They are not participants in the Iraq War. They in many ways were caught in the crossfire, and actually back in July 2004 were declared by the US as protected persons. And that means that they should not be transferred to a country where they will face persecution for their political opinions. The Convention applies for a year after military operations close, and they have not yet closed. There are still troops within Iraq, and so this should still be in force. Now, this, of course, means the US are legally responsible for the protection of these individuals, and of course they have passed that responsibility on to Iraq after seeking assurances. But I think that any country that has been involved in the whole sorry state of affairs in Iraq must bear a level of concern and indeed a level of responsibility for the protection of these individuals. There's obviously concern that the Iraqi government is facing pressure from Iran to return the individuals at Camp Ashraf. And while in terms of regional stability, in general terms, cooperation between the new Iraqi government and the Iranian state could be seen as positive for regional stability, this should not come at the expense of human rights. Additionally, recent US moves towards improving relationships with Iran, particularly, I think, and very sensibly, starting with the issue of Afghanistan, where there is a clear area of mutual interest between the US and Iran, is again very, very welcome. But this should not drown out the legitimate concerns and indeed the upholding of international law over the rights of the people in Camp Ashraf. Amnesty International have said that there is a grave risk of torture for these people if they're forced to return to Iran. And indeed, in August 2008, the Iraqi Justice Minister said, if it were not for the presence of coalition forces at Ashraf, you would have seen the people of Iraq attacking and destroying Ashraf, which doesn't exactly bode well for the safety of these people in Iraq. Which is why I'm surprised that the government has so far accepted the US and Iraqi assurances of the safety of these people if they're actually expelled to Iran. I struggle to see how their safety can indeed be guaranteed. As I mentioned, the missile attacks on Ashraf in May and July 2008 are believed to have come from Iran. So if they were prepared to launch attacks on them in another country, then why would they not be expected to persecute them were they actually in Iran? We've heard from honourable members, particularly the honourable member for Northampton South, about the wide range of groups already suffering a great deal of persecution in Iran, whether it's the Baha'i or the Christians or other religious minorities, or indeed whether it's groups such as students. And the honourable member for Ribble Valley powerfully outlined the plight of young gay men in Iran, the horror of the executions and torture which go on, and indeed, perhaps even worse and more shocking, the relaxed attitude that he found among Iranian MPs to those really shocking facts. And in this context, therefore, how can the government have confidence that if Camp Ashraf is closed and the individuals are returned to Iran, that they will in any way be safe? The government in the other place, and indeed here, has insisted that this is not the UK's responsibility, but is the US's responsibility. But the history of the UK, we've often been a mediator between the US and Iran, and we have also waxed lyrical about the special relationship that we have with the US, and so I would suggest that perhaps it's worth us using that special relationship to influence the US to take this issue seriously. I would also point out that when the US decided to invade Iraq, we didn't say that that was just a US responsibility and stand back from it. In fact, we were shoulder to shoulder with the US. If we were then why should we not be shoulder to shoulder with them in dealing with this issue now? This is undoubtedly a thorny issue with no easy answer, but that doesn't mean that we can get rid of any responsibility that we have for the outcomes. And there is a potential humanitarian catastrophe just waiting to happen here, and that should concern us all as UK citizens and indeed as citizens of the world. In the other place, there were questions raised about this issue on the 2nd of March, and the Noble Lord Malloch Brown didn't give a view from the government on whether or not Camp Ashraf should be closed and what should happen to the individuals who are there, and indeed seemed to say that he was satisfied that the Iraqi authorities are doing sufficient making sufficient efforts to protect these people. And in light of the chilling remarks that were outlined earlier from the Iraqi security advisor, I just asked the government how on earth they can have the confidence to make those statements. And I hope that in his response, the government minister will outline clearly what steps it is currently taking and what concrete steps it will take to ensure that the words protected person status under the Geneva Convention actually have meaning for these 3,500 people in Ashraf.